Right, Toyota champs, now I've got my notebook out and now you're looking at two laptops, two awesome gaming laptops. We have the G15 All AMD Advantage Edition from ASUS and we have the Legion 7. And you might think that these are both the same size. They both look like 15-inch laptops. This is actually a 16-inch, this is a 15-inch. It actually shows you how good of a job Lenovo have done making a 16-inch look like a 15-inch, and you can see the differences in display, 16 by 10, 16 by 9. But we're not comparing these two laptops today. That's not what this video is about. It's about comparing the 6800M graphics card, AMD graphics card, in the G15 versus the RTX 3080 in the Legion 7. But before I get into that, there's some salient points I have to tell you the differences in these laptops. Of course, one's a 15-inch, one's a 16-inch. When it comes to price to performance, the AMD, you can't beat that, okay? So if you're going to get an RTX 3080, it's going to cost a lot more than, you know, the AMD Advantage 6800. Performance, the price king here. These both use the same CPU. AMD 5900HX, 280 watt power supply, 300 watt power supply. When I tested these two, this has a discrete mode, so you can put it in discrete GPU mode. I left it in hybrid mode because then it's fair for both of them. They both have 16 gigabytes of RAM. I did put 16 gigs in the Legion. 1440p display, 1600p display. Now this is supposed to be a 115 watt GPU, but it can use 160 watts. Don't worry about that. Don't be fooled by that. It does have a 280 watt power supply. That tells you everything you need to know. It does need more than the 115 watts. It says, well, in the crate software at least. This is a 165 watter, 16 gigabyte. Okay, so 12 gigabyte, 16 gigabyte. And I actually do have a 95 watt RTX 3080 laptop, but I think it's better to compare these two. Now, first I'll get into video editing and then I'll get on to some gaming benchmarks. So when it comes to video editing, I used the Adobe suite here, the latest version. I exported my project that I've pretty much tested every single laptop, and they're both super fast exporting. Now the RTX 3080 is faster. Maybe it uses CUDA and NVENC encoder. I don't know what's going on, but it is faster. The AMD is no slouch here either. Super fast on both of them. Now when it comes to actual playback on the system, the Legion with the RTX 3080 plays back the footage no problem. LUT applied, color grading done on it at full 100%, scrubs like a beast. It is really good. But when it comes to the AMD, a little bit choppy with the playback and the scrubbing. Now this is 420 H.264 and someone asked me to test their 422 6K footage. That won't play back on either of these systems very well. Puget Systems done this test and it goes through H.264, H.265 with all the different color profiles or color spaces, whatever. So they've gone to 444, 420, 422, and it turns out that basically unless you have 420, hardware and software is not going to support sort of decoding there, and it's going to be hard for the system to play. But when it comes to the AMD being a little bit choppy in the playback, not so good, I think it's just down to Premiere not being optimized for OpenCL. When you use Premiere with Metal and CUDA, the playback is good, it's smooth with this footage, scrubbing is awesome, but when you turn it to OpenCL, yeah, the playback just isn't as good. And even if you do that with an Nvidia system, if you turn it to OpenCL, it starts chopping. So when it comes to playback scrubbing, H.264, H.265, Nvidia has the advantage in Adobe at least because of the CUDA, and it would be the same with the Mac with Metal. They need to do some more optimizations in OpenCL so that AMD systems with AMD GPUs can perform better in Premiere. But as you saw, the export speeds on the 3080 were faster. Right, now let's get into some gaming benchmarks. And on the left you have the 6800M, and on the right you have the RTX 3080. Now what we need to be looking at here is the graphics score. That's the most important bit. And yeah, your eyes are not deceiving you. The RX 6800M is actually destroying the RTX 3080. And I actually done this test many times. Now with Firestrike, it really does like AMD, and I would expect it to be faster than the AMD GPU, but not by this much. Now, if I had an Intel CPU, I would expect over 30,000 with the RTX 3080. So there's something here, maybe a bit of the old resizable bar action. You know, it's not happening with the Nvidia and Ryzen CPU, but with an Intel CPU, I would get over 30,000, but I definitely would not be getting 34,000 that you get with the 6800M. So this is Time Spy, and as you can see here, it's flipped around now. The RTX 3080 is faster than the 6800M. Not by much. You know, it's same with Battlefield, 110 frames versus 115 frames on the RTX 3080. Let's just have a quick look at, you know, the frequencies, etc. There's a bit more up and down action with the GPU frequency on the AMD, but yeah, not much to see here. Now, when it comes to real gaming benchmarks, what I thought I'd do here is pick the 3 most demanding titles that I know of, and I come up with Flight Simulator, Cyberpunk, and Red Dead Redemption. Let me know if there are harder games on the system than those. But here you can see with Flight Simulator, the RTX 3080 is faster and quite a bit faster, same settings, but here's something really important to know. When I tested the Nvidia GPU, the RTX 3080, I tested at 1600p and 1440p with the AMD GPU, the 6800M. Why did I do that? Well, I couldn't get 1440p resolution on all 3 games with the Nvidia system. It actually supported the resolution of 1600p 16x10. So for all these games, bear in mind the Nvidia GPU is rendering at a higher resolution, 1440 versus 1600p. As I said before, the Nvidia system can actually be faster if I use it in discrete mode, but I did use it in hybrid mode. So that's very interesting. The RTX 3080 rendering at a higher resolution actually still beats the 6800M. And if you look at the minimum FPS, you know, it was 33 frames to the 6800M and 49 frames for the 3080. Now let's have a look at Red Dead Redemption 2 Ultra settings, and it was like a dead tie. So really, the RTX 3080 is still faster because it's rendering at a higher resolution, but pretty close, right? I estimate you'll get a few more frames per second if you rendered at 1440p with the RTX 3080, but yeah, there's not much to choose between them. Although the minimum frame rates there, you can see just there by the bar. I don't know, I tested that many times. I think it's just the benchmark. When it's going through the different scenes, it just, you know, drops a few frames. It didn't actually look like it was dropping a heap while it was doing the benchmark. But anyway, regardless, very close between the two. And let's round it off with a bit of Cyberpunk here. And as you can see, the RTX 3080 56 versus 50 frames per second. And this is ultra settings, of course. Again, you need to know the RTX 3080 is 1600p and the 6800M is 1440p. The minimum frame rates, yeah, they're sort of around the same there. Not much of a difference between the full frame rate. So we're talking 45 frames per second on the RTX 3080, the minimum FPS, and 42 on the 6800M. But I guess here is another win for the RTX 3080. So to wrap it up, I don't think you can beat the 6800M for, you know, price to performance. You're going to be paying a lot more for a 165 watt 3080. It is faster, the 3080, but it's not night and day difference here. And of course, it will depend on what title you're playing. For Premiere Pro, I still think Nvidia is the way to go just because of the optimizations with CUDA, etc. But I think the main takeaway is when I was playing the games, could I tell the difference between the two? And I'm going to say yes, but there wasn't a big difference. I would say probably the difference is probably the Legion has a faster display. So maybe it's just the display that I'm really telling the difference between the two. It's really hard to say, isn't it? Unless they have the same display. But I love this AMD thing. I'm happy to see it here, competition, and you know, the price you're going to pay for this compared to a 3080. Yeah, I reckon if I had the same display on both the laptops, I probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Now, let me know in the comments, do you want to see a comparison with an RTX 3080, two systems with an RTX 3080, 95 watts, one with an Intel CPU, one with an AMD CPU, to sort of tell you which one's better, which CPU will be better for gaming. If you'd like to see that video, let me know down there in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one, guys. Tally ho.